And now, live with Diane.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We're here for another show today with some very interesting topics. If you haven't noticed, we're with new co-host Diane Cephalon.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Great, we're excited to have you, and we're excited to learn about you. But we have to transition right now to another guest, to another segment, Broca and Wernicke. And so we will be back. Grace Broca and Nicole Wernicke, former softball players at Queens College. Okay, can you tell me what happened to you?
Yeah. Ball and stroke. Also, head. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. You were hit in the head.
Yeah.
Okay. So, after your stroke, your speech was affected. Do you know what that's called?
Yeah. AFA.
Yes, that's right. Aphasia. Does writing things down help you?
Yes. It's also hard. Writing,
It's hard for them.
it's easier.
So tell me, do you see your friends?
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah.
Is it hard for them?
Well, yes. Speech, hard. So yeah.
See. Well, thank you so much for coming. As you see, Broca's aphasia affects motor speech production, but clearly their comprehension is fine. Next, we have Nicole here, who was affected in her semantic processing, and therefore now has Wernicke's aphasia. So Nicole, is it true you have Wernicke's aphasia?
Yeah, I have that.
Can you tell me what this is?
Nugget.
What about this?
Blue.
And these? Nicole, I want to try something with you. Try to repeat what I say. Apple.
A doll.
Spot.
Saw.
According to Nicole's doctor, her implicit memory is intact. This is truly going to amaze you. Nicole, I'd like you to finish the song Mary Had a Little Lamb. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb whose face was white as snow.
Great, thank you. Hi, and welcome to this segment. We have two experts on neurology here with us. So, girls, tell us about it.
Well, neurology is the study of neurological diseases and disorders and their diagnosis and treatment.
Yeah, but there's two branches of neurology. The study of structure of the nervous system is neuroanatomy.
And the study of the nervous system is neurophysiology
Very interesting.
and their functions.
But is it true that neurons are the basic building blocks of the nervous system?
Yes, neurons specialize in transmitting information.
There's two parts, the soma and the nerve fibers.
The soma is also known as the cell body.
And we also have the nerve fibers, which are and the dendrites look like little trees, and they receive information from other cells.
I see. So it begins with the dendrite receiving information from other cells. The cell body processes that information, and the axons transmit the information to other neurons.
Exactly.
But can neurons communicate with each other?
With the help of synapses, axons, and neurotransmitters, neurotransmission is a chemical process where information is exchanged at the level of the synapse.
Wow. So a lot goes on in the nervous system.
Yeah, it's very important and it breaks it down to so much more.
There are two systems under the human nervous system, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system.
So if there are two different systems, are they responsible for different things?
Let me show you. So here are the divisions of the nervous system. You have two separate parts. The central nervous system, which has the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which has the cranial nerves and spinal nerves. The sympathetic nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, which has the sympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system.
And there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves, 31 pairs of spinal nerves in the peripheral nervous system, as well as sensory receptors.
Very cool. Talk to me though about this peripheral nervous system. What does it do?
Well, there's the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. And the somatic nervous system is actions that you are conscious of and you can voluntarily perform.
Yeah, and the autonomic nervous system is involved with involuntary movements.
Okay. Well, like my heart beating, like activity?
Yeah, just like that, like the nerves, secretion, and the digestive system.
And within the autonomic nervous system, we have the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system.
The sympathetic nervous system is something that we like to call fight or flight. It occurs when our body feels threatened. It gets excited, increasing the heart rate and the blood pressure.
And our parasympathetic system calms the body down, and we like to call this one rest and digest, where it calms the body down to its normal calm state.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you both so much for your expertise and your input. Stay tuned for our next guest. Hello. So we're back now with Diane to specifically talk about her. But before that, we have to say we were college buddies, and I have a surprise. This is a picture of us from college.
There we are.
There we are, right in the middle.
Okay.
Well, that was good for flashback, but we're here for the now and the present. So what have you been up to? What have you been doing?
Well, thanks for asking. Thanks for having me here. To start, I'm located between the brainstem and the cerebrum, and I am also above the midbrain.
Good spot.
One of my structures is the basal ganglia, which is deep within the brain. It receives input from the frontal lobe and sends information to higher centers in the brain through the thalamus. It also plays a major role in the facilitation and inhibition of movement. Okay, what have you been up to, Val?
Oh, me? Well, I am the largest part of the diencephalon. And I kind of act like a post office. I integrate sensory experiences and relay them to cortical areas. I also play a very important role in speech and language and in maintaining consciousness and alertness.
Wow, that's very interesting.
I know.
Another interesting thing, I've been doing some research, and I have some fun facts for our viewers.
Great.
Okay. Did you know there are more nerve cells in the human brain than there are stars in the Milky Way?
My goodness. No?
Okay. Also, your brain is 60% white matter and 40% gray matter.
Explain that.
2% of body weight is cerebral blood supply, but it requires 20% of the body's blood. And last but not least, the brain consumes 25% of the body's oxygen.
25% oxygen. Okay, well, those were some very interesting facts, Diane. Thank you for being with us and becoming a part of us here at Live with Diane.
Thank you.
And we'll just have this break right now, and we'll come back with a very, very special guest. Hi, welcome back to the show. And here we have with us today Dr. Jackie and Dr. Leah with their exciting new book, Cerebral Cortex. It's an exciting book. I read it all in one day. Can you tell me from your very own words What is all that?
Well, first, I want to say thanks for having us on the show. As far as the book was concerned, it mainly had a few topics in it, and for example, what I specialized was in the cerebrum. It weighs about 3 pounds, and it's composed of 10 billion neurons. The cerebral hemisphere is divided into 2 parts. One being the peripheral region, where it consists of the outer area, which has gray matter, and it also contains the body of the nerve cells. And the other is the central part, which mainly consists of axonal extensions of neurons. Yeah. The cerebrum, it includes the gyri, which are the bumps that are seen on the brain, as well as the sulci, or otherwise known as fissures, which are the grooves. When dealing with the brain, there are certain important fissures that have to be mentioned. For example, longitudinal cerebral fissure, which is the groove on the parts of the 2 hemispheres, which divides right and left, as seen in this picture, which is right here,
Great.
from the front to the back. Also, the central sulcus, it's known as the Rolandic fissure, which runs from one side to the other and separates the frontal from parietal lobe. The central cortex also includes the Sylvian fissure, which separates the frontal and divides the temporal lobe from the frontal lobe. Which also, you can see the red is the central sulcus and the blue is the lateral sulcus. Since we're on the topic, though, of the various areas of the brain, I should probably mention that the human brain has 4 lobes. One is the frontal lobe, which is very important for motor abilities, higher level thinking, also planning, reasoning, impulse control. It's found in front of the central sulcus and above the lateral fissure. This precentral gyrus is an important component for the frontal lobe. It's parallel to the central sulcus and deals with the primary motor strip, which controls voluntary muscles, all the way to the other side, through the pyramidal system, which travels down from the motor strip to the medulla. Damage to this area has the potential to lead to paralysis. On the other hand, the extrapyramidal system, it involves the involuntary reflexes. It includes balance, coordination. This system constantly altering and modifying and motor impulses.
Okay, so thank you for your input in your half of the book. Amazing. Dr. Jackie, can you please tell us your half, your expertise?
So adding to what Dr. Leo was saying, in the frontal lobe, we can find Broca's area, which is located in the left posterior inferior frontal gyrus. It is associated with Broca's aphasia. It is vital for the motor movements for speech production. We also have the parietal lobe, which is posterior to the central sulcus and as well superior to the lateral fissure. It is separated from the occipital lobe by an imaginary boundary. The functions of the parietal lobe include perception and sympathetic sensation, which involve the sensations of touch, pressure, position in space, and body awareness. There's 3 gyri in the parietal lobe. First is the postcentral gyrus, aka sensory cortex, or striatum, which is the primary sensory area of the parietal lobe. And then we also have the supramarginal gyrus and the angular gyrus. The supramarginal gyrus is superior to the lateral fissure in the inferior portion of the parietal lobe. Its posterior portion curves around the lateral fissure. And lastly, the angular gyrus is posterior to the supramarginal gyrus. The temporal lobe begins at the lateral sulcus and ends at an imaginary boundary of the occipital lobe. It is a site of auditory reception and interpretation. It contains 3 gyri, superior, middle, and inferior. In the posterior superior temporal gyrus, left hemisphere of the temporal lobe is where Wernicke's area, which is commonly associated with Wernicke's aphasia, and it is important for language comprehension. And finally, the smallest lobe is the occipital lobe, which is behind the parietal lobe. There is no sulci to separate it from the other lobes, therefore there is no imaginary boundary. In the occipital lobe, there is the primary visual cortex,
and its function is for vision.
Vision. Wow. A lot of things that the cerebral cortex does. So I want to
Definitely.
thank you, ladies, for coming here today with your book.
Our pleasure. Thanks for
You're
having us
welcome.
again.
Oh, yes, thank you. And just to tell you, the audience, you have also a free copy of the book underneath your chairs. And so we'll be back with our final guest.
Welcome back, everyone. We are now being joined by Maria Quintero, who represents the three fiber sisters, Paula Projection Fiber, Andrea Association Fiber, and Courtney Commissural Fiber. Thanks for joining us, Maria.
Hi, unfortunately the Fiber Sisters couldn't be with us today as they're very busy at work keeping the information flowing throughout the brain for coordination of sensory stimuli received and actions planned.
We understand. Could you please tell us a little bit more about their work?
Of course, while Paula Projection transmits sensory information to the brain and motor information to the muscles and glands, her internal capsules are compact fibers near the brainstem that fan out into the corona radiata and transmits information to other brain regions. Her efferent fibers pass through the thalamus and basal ganglia to transmit motor commands, and her afferent fibers transmit sensory information.
Wow, very important.
Yes, while her sister Andrea Association has both short and long fibers, she's an intrahemispheric connector, so she connects areas within the brain. Her superior longitudinal or arcuate fasciculus is just below the cortex, connecting Broca's motor speech area to Wernicke's sensory speech area. Damage to her can lead to conduction aphasia because she is important for language acquisition and meaningful speech production.
And we still have one sister left, correct?
Yes, Courtney Commissural Fiber, who is an interhemispheric connector, so she connects areas of the two hemispheres. Her corpus callosum is a thick band of fibers that connects the hemispheres.
Oh, and what happens if these two areas do not connect?
Well, that can lead to a type of disconnection syndrome called split brain.
Wow, have you seen this before?
Yes, in epileptic patients, and we found that the left hemisphere is more analytical, logical, and verbal, while the right hemisphere is more holistic, visual spatial, and intuitive current understanding like integration.
Thank you for joining us, Maria.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. Hi, we're here with Cindy, who's a patient currently undergoing treatment for dysphagia. Hi, Cindy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Can you define dysphagia for us first?
Especially basically it means like having difficulty swallowing. I had a difficulty in controlling food in my mouth. I cough and I choke and I experience frequent pneumonia. When I swallow the food, usually gets stuck like in my mouth.
What are some things you learned while you were in treatment?
Oh, I learned a lot of stuff actually. I learned that there are 4 stages of mastication and deglutition. There are 2 voluntary stages. The oral preparatory stage, which prepares the food for swallowing, and the oral stage in which the tongue drops down and back and pulls back. And the anterior part pushes against the hard palate, and the bolus moves back to back, reaching the facial fibers. The swallowing reflex starts, and the third stage is triggered. The pharyngeal stage is reflexive. It can be stopped once it started. It begins when the bolus has contact with the facial fibers. And during this stage, the progression of aspiration and nasal regurgitation takes place. And the last stage, which is involuntary, in this stage the bolus is moved down the esophagus via peristaltic wave motion with some help from gravity. The larynx lowers, returning to its normal position, and the cricopharyngeus muscle contracts to prevent reflux and respiration issues.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you for coming, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Everyone, stay tuned for a game of Family Feud.
Do you want to build a neuron? Let's learn about the brain. Neurons are basic building blocks, have internal ends, releasing neurotransmitters. The dendrites receive information, while the soma processes it and axon sends to other neurons. Motor nerves are efferent, sensory nerves afferent.
projection fiber internal capsule, fanning to other brain regions, commission fibers to connects to hemispheres through the corpus callosum. Association fibers, intrahemispheric, connect Broca's organs. The thymus integrates sensory experiences and it relays motor impulses. Takes info from the BG cerebellum to motor areas of the cortex. We maintain alertness and consciousness.